and welcome to Tech Talks, the People and Planet podcast. Today I'm joined by Bill Snyder, the CEO of health tech business Vivante Health. Hi, Bill. Good to see you.
Hey, Lee. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. I'm looking forward to it. It's an interesting topic, isn't it? And I'm sure you're going to tell us all about the stats and whatnot, about what the product does and how many people this affects. But yeah, so it'd be great to start off with a little bit more about the mission, the problem that you guys are solving, and the inspiration, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission is to revolutionize digital health gut first.
Yeah.
So we work with individuals who suffer from chronic digestive conditions, and that's a really broad umbrella. So that can be things like ulcerative colitis, it can be Crohn's disease, it can be GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, but it's also a really large population who are symptomatic but don't have a formal diagnosis. So they could be suffering from abdominal pain, chronic constipation, chronic acid reflux.
Yeah.
And they really don't know kind of what it is or where to go. And many of them are feeling alone, they feel lost. And for me, I've seen loved ones and family members impacted by these conditions. And I've got friends who have suffered from these conditions. And it's really alarming to see the increase in these rates and to see kind of the same experience for people where they do feel isolated, they do feel alone, they're not sure where to go, and they can't seem to get the type of care that gets them feeling better. So it's really a passion project for me in terms of how can we optimize care for these individuals who are suffering in silence.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? Because like you say, I mean, there's so many different levels to this kind of spectrum of gut health as well. You know, probably everyone has got some sort of, it resonates with everyone, doesn't it, in terms of what this can actually mean?
Absolutely. And it's, we're still figuring it out. That's the big thing. When you look at kind of the science, when you look at how we think about the body and the mind, this is an area where, fortunately, there's a lot of funding going into this area from a grant perspective, because we're still learning about the gut. We're still learning about digestive health and how it impacts our total health. So you're spot on that everyone can relate to this. Everyone's had some type of issue. And those who have a chronic issue, it really is debilitating. It can impact every aspect of your life.
Just unwrap the chronic part for our listeners as well.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so essentially, some of these conditions can be lifelong conditions, especially if they're not treated. And so what we see, unfortunately, because these conditions in that kind of spectrum of digestive health, there's no single biomarker. There's no easy way for a lot of these conditions or symptoms to say, this is your problem and this is the fix. And so a lot of it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of monitoring. It takes a lot of ongoing support for individuals with these symptoms and conditions. And that's really hard to do in a brick and mortar setting. And when you think about the way providers are set up today, they're doing incredible work for these patients, but they're often overburdened. They don't have the time to work with the patient on an ongoing basis, and they don't have access to data. I mean, they don't have what's happening in the member's life every single day. And what's exciting is this is a space where technology can play a significantly outsized role, because we can leverage technology to capture that data, to support the member on a day-to-day basis, minute-to-minute basis, and really learn about the individual and create a personalized program that's rooted in clinical evidence to support those members. So that's what's really exciting about bringing tech into the solution.
Absolutely. So what's the kind of stats then? Take the US. Obviously, that's where you're based. How many people suffer from these issues?
Yeah, so people are pretty surprised to hear that 1 in 4 Americans suffer from a chronic digestive issue. And so that's a massive part of the population. And a lot of those are, you're looking at diagnosis, but there's a ton that, again, are non-diagnosed, that are taking over-the-counter medication, that believe this is just something that they have to live with because they don't know where to go for help and support. And we also know it's a leading cause for emergency room admissions in the U.S.
Really?
Because people do delay getting care, or they're not sure where to go. And so oftentimes then the pain becomes too great, so they end up in the emergency room. The other thing we see is a really high correlation rate with digestive health and other comorbidities. So high correlation to type 2 diabetes, high correlation to cancer, high correlation to musculoskeletal issues because of the inflammation in the gut causes inflammation in the joints, and then a very high correlation to mental health. So something called the gut-brain axis, or that mind-gut connection, where we see high levels of anxiety and depression, oftentimes correlated with digestive health issues. So massive problem, continues to grow each year, and then we see it impacting kind of the overall health of the individual as well.
So what's the solution then, Bill? What have you guys developed? What's the product, the technology you mentioned before as well? That'd be great to unwrap a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So I touched on some of the issues as a starting point with these conditions, which are they're nebulous in nature. They're not very easy to diagnose, and oftentimes it takes a lot of data points to really understand what's going on with the individual. So from a technology perspective, it's tech that allows us to do that. So our app, our web platform, the first thing that we do is gather information about the individual. And that never stops. We're always learning about our members as they engage with us. And we're also using third-party data sources when we can get them to aggregate this information and leverage pattern recognition. So we can say, hey, we understand these members, and then we can build evidence-based clinical pathways that's unique to them. Because a patient that comes to us with a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, who's on a medication, who's been working with a GI doc, but now is looking to optimize their care, needs something vastly different than someone says, hey, I haven't seen a provider in 2 years, and I'm not really sure what's going on, but I've got abdominal pain and I've got chronic constipation. And so because those are so different, we can leverage technology to understand the member, assess risk, and then build these clinical pathways based on what we're getting from the member. And then we continue to learn. You know, it's not a snapshot in time. This is understanding the member every single day and maturing our pathway based on the data that we're receiving through those interactions. And then the second thing that we do is we support them. We support them through things like digital therapeutics, so things like cognitive behavioral therapy for patients with IBS. We support them through our remote care team. So we leverage health coaches, registered dietitians, gastroenterologists, internal medicine specialists. And so it's a coordinated team of providers. And that's really important because we need to optimize the care by getting the member to the right care at the right time. So one member that we look at, we might identify and say, boy, you're really going to get a lot out of meeting with a registered dietitian based on what we're seeing. Another, we might say, hey, you need to talk to one of our gastroenterologists. And then for the last piece is really working with kind of third parties to figure out how can we use some innovative testing that is clinically proven. And one example of that is at-home colorectal cancer screening. So we are able to send Cologuard kits to the home so that patients can really think about getting those colorectal cancer screenings done easily in the privacy of their own home, where we can start to identify risk and then ultimately identify who should be going into those brick and mortar settings and say, hey, it's time for you to go in and see your gastroenterologist in a brick and mortar setting.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Because I think that privacy setting is important as well, because I'm sure that, you know, there's a bit of a stigma attached to gut health, and not everyone, probably people will be embarrassed to go and get it checked out, right?
I mean, you touched on a really big piece here, Lee. There is a stigma. I mean, nobody likes talking about what's going on in the bathroom, right? No. That's a taboo topic that you're not going to bring up at the dinner table. And I would say what I've loved about the evolution of mental health is that I think that people have gotten more empowered to talk about mental health as such a core component of our well-being. And what we're hoping for and what we're starting to see is people getting more comfortable talking about digestive health as well. But we've got a long way to go, because you're right. It's difficult to talk about. It's hard to talk about, and it's so important. And so we're part of our mission is to get people talking about it more and to get people to open up, to say, hey, you know, this is some things that I'm struggling with, because they can be really, really big indicators of underlying conditions, not only from the digestive space, but also other significant conditions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, affecting literally tens of millions of people in the US alone, you know, times that by however many for worldwide as well, you know, so huge issue.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Lee. And one thing I would add to that is, you know, we see it in terms of, as a company, you know, we built this solution, we brought it to market with the goal of impacting as many people as possible. And we're seeing a huge need. We're seeing,
Yeah.
you know, we primarily work with large employers and health plans, and we're seeing a huge need there. And then we're seeing our enrollment rates much higher than other solutions in the chronic condition or digital health space by a comparison. And so what that's telling us is, we know that the data, the third-party data says, hey, this is a massive kind of area in terms of scope and individuals impacted. But now we're seeing it. We're seeing the enrollment. We're seeing the need. And so it's really opening a lot of people's eyes to say, wow, you're enrolling a big portion of our population. There must be a significant need here.
And I think that people will probably feel safety in numbers, you know, when they realize that they're not alone in this, and it's, you know, it's actually okay. Like you were saying there with the mental health thing as well, you know. And it kind of leads me on to the next question about how you've seen the health technology industry evolve in your career. You know, you've touched on the mental health thing there, but, you know, in other areas, how has it changed?
Yeah, I think I'd say we're on, you know, digital health 2.0.
Yeah.
I think, you know, is really kind of where we're leaning into. And I think this is much more about customization and personalization. You know, now we have the ability to use the data we're getting and that third-party data I referenced to really create a personalized picture. And you know, anyone listening, you, me, you know, we've all kind of been through these experiences where if it's not personalized, it's really not going to impact you. And so there is no one size fits all, especially when it comes to healthcare. And so I think we have this great opportunity to leverage the data and to leverage technology to help build these personalized programs. And so I think that's really kind of the next phase. And so with that, you know, there's two things I always call out. One is this massive opportunity to leverage patient data so that we can add value to their experience and create great outcomes for them as the member. But the second thing that companies really need to be focused on is data security. And so for us, you know, we're SOC 2 certified, we're high trust certified, and in our DNA is taking member data security very seriously. And so that's the other thing when I see like a lot of health tech companies evolving. I think the ones that are doing it really well are leveraging the technology the right way, but also making sure that they're really focused on data security and keeping their members' data safe, because that's imperative to build trust.
Absolutely. Certainly interesting times for the industry, isn't it?
It is.
So you guys have had some really good success recently. The Series B closed not too long back. You must be delighted with that. It's rarely plain sailing. What challenges have you had to overcome and navigate across along the way?
Yeah, just like any company, you know, we've had ups and downs. We've had struggles that we've had to overcome. I think, you know, everyone always sees the good news out there, and we've definitely had our fair share of bruises and learning along the way. I think the big thing that I'm always promoting to our team is the focus on learning and adapting. And so, you know, you set the vision and you build the process to execute against that vision. But what I'm always telling the team is we're going to track our success, and anytime there's red along the way for that execution plan, red's okay if we know what we did wrong and how we're going to adjust to fix it moving forward. And so as long as we're learning, it's never a straight line. It's always going to be a little bit of this up and down, and maybe a little bit backwards and forwards along the way. But as long as we're progressing, as long as we're adapting, and then ultimately executing against that larger vision, that's going to lead to long-term success. And so I think for us, it's kind of using those key learnings and then infusing them in the business as we go. And that's proved really successful for us. And I think you mentioned, you know, we were really fortunate to have a terrific Series B with a really nice increase in valuation with great partners. And I think that's just a testament to the work done by the team. You know, I'm fortunate to work with incredible people who are dedicated to our mission. You know, we have people at the organization that really see this massive problem, have seen the impact that it's had on individuals, and know that better is possible.
Yeah, so important when your team all believe in the same thing. You're all pushing in the same direction. Crucial. What's the long-term vision though, Bill?
So for us, there's really kind of two big things that are very exciting. number one is first and foremost the care that we can provide for our members. And so we think about how many people can we impact.
Yeah.
And so that's what we talk about every day. We wake up, our first core value is keeping our members in their guts first. So when we talk about what can we do, it's about how do we create these incredible experiences for individuals by reducing their symptoms and giving them their lives back. And so that's kind of the scalable process. That's building the solution. It's thinking about the personalized program that we can bring to their fingertips with immediate access to a coordinated care team. And how do we continue to develop that and iterate that at scale? And so for us, there's no kind of end in sight in terms of the number of people that we can help. The second piece is, as we're doing this, we are, again, learning a lot. We are creating the most robust data set in terms of these symptoms, these conditions, these points of care where we can really influence care and create incredible outcomes for the individuals. And so ultimately, we see ourselves as the leading voice in digestive health, and we want to work with incredible institutions and incredible providers to say, hey, we've got this great data set where we can start to really pinpoint this and leverage pattern recognition to say this type of patient would most benefit from this type of care. And so I think that's really exciting, especially when I talked before about this digestive health space still being an area of learning for the community, the scientific community. So I think for us, in a future state, we can be talking about things like precision medicine. We can be talking about things like optimized procedures based upon the symptomatology of any individual. So that's really exciting in terms of where we see that kind of longer term.
Because like you say, I mean, it seems like you guys are only really scratching the surface at this stage of what's perhaps possible. And I guess that's the exciting thing. But what's in the immediate plans? What's coming up? 2024's around the corner now. Anything exciting you can share that's going to be happening next year?
Yeah. So for 2024, we've got some really exciting partnerships that we're going to be announcing. And those partnerships are largely with large health plans in the US. And so these are health plans that cover members across the country. And whenever they're working with an early stage, innovative organization, they go through a very significant diligence process. They want to understand, does it have a clinical impact for members? Is it safe? Are the data security parameters put in place? Can they scale and grow? Is this going to add value to every member that we serve? And so for us, what's really exciting is a lot of those large health plans have evaluated the market and they've said, Vivante is the solution. This is the chronic digestive solution that we choose to partner with for our members. And that creates a really, really large scale for us and just allows us to impact more individuals that are suffering in silence. So that's going to be really exciting. We'll be having a couple of those announcements coming up here pretty early. And so I think next year for us is going to be a year of continued just massive growth, which is exciting because our mission is to impact as many people as possible.
Yeah, and Bill, we're looking forward to tracking that growth as well. That's all we've got time for today, but we look forward to inviting you back on perhaps next year to see how that growth's panned out. Bill, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Lee. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.